Hey folks, Todd Seisner here, editor of BassFan.com. I want to thank you all for tuning in to another edition of Bass Fan Up Close. We're in the midst of our Bass Day Ever series, where pro anglers recall in as much detail as they can the single most memorable or impactful day of their tournament careers. So far, it's been fun and enlightening to hear these guys go through all the details of the most memorable single day of their tournament career, not necessarily from a win or a particular season, but just one individual day that stands out above the rest. Today we're going to be joined by California pro Brent Ehrler, who's had a remarkable career so far. He's the winner of 8 FLW events, including the 2006 Forest Wood Cup, and more than $2 million in career earnings. After a successful stint on the Elite Series, Brent has now moved over to the Bass Pro Tour, and he's the answer to the trivia question, who won the first Major League Fishing event? That was obviously back at Lake Amistad, filmed in the fall of 2011. Brent has 8 wins from his FLW days to draw from for this exercise, yet the most memorable day of his career came in a tournament that he didn't win. Came close, but fell short.
Well, hello.
How are you?
I'm not wearing any pants.
Okay. I wouldn't expect you to. So it's a good thing we're recording. So.
I actually am. I really am.
Yeah. Okay. I'm wearing the short pants. So
with you insisting that I did not, I still decided to go ahead and wear.
Yeah. Well, my advice isn't always worth taking. So, well, I guess we'll do a cut here, and then we'll welcome you back in again. So, well, I'd like to welcome Brent into our Bass Day Ever series. Really appreciate you taking some time while you're at home there in California to crank up this Wayback Machine and relive one of these cool days. Before I brought you in, I was, kind of going over, your career resume. You got, almost 2 handfuls of wins from FLW career. You have the MLF, event win at Amistad, but yet this day that we're going to talk about comes from an event you didn't win. And I think that's what's kind of unique and interesting about this this exercise here. So take me back, Brent, to March 12th, 2008. I mean, it doesn't seem like 12 years ago, but here we are. That was day one of the California Delta FLW Series Western Division. I think it was presented by Walmart and the National Guard at the time. It was a mouthful to say, whatever it was. Put us in the boat with you that day. I guess at that point, what's going on in your life? You were already, as the kids say, a hammer at this sport. What's going on in your life, maybe on and off the water? And why does that particular day stand out still?
First off, I can't believe it was 12 years ago. It feels like yesterday. I remember so much about specifically that event because it was still early on in my career. I mean, we are 3 years into me fishing nationally.
Right.
I won the Forest Wood Cup in 2006. I don't think I'd won a tournament since then. Maybe I did. I can't remember if I had won another one or not. I had the Forest Wood Cup win, and that was it.
Right. I think that was it up until then.
We're at that event. The fishing is not easy, at least for what I found. And what was scaring me the most was the weather that was coming in. Now, this is a tidal fishery. We're on the Cal Delta, and you have to be in certain places at the right tides. Mm-hmm. And I found an area that had a lot of really big fish in it. The tide was going to be right first thing in the morning on the first day, but the weather and wind was going to come in and it was going to get blown out by the wind and weather. So I had this small window where I was going to flip, where I really thought I could catch some big ones. Mm-hmm. And, at the time I was fishing both the Tour and the Western FLW Series. So, I was traveling a lot.
Yeah.
And back east, west, east, west, back and forth. So I was traveling a lot. I'm still fairly new in this. Yeah, I won the Forest Wood Cup, but I still didn't really know for sure how long I was going to be fishing. So this was kind of a weird transition in my career. We go out to that first day of the tournament. I run right to my bank that I've been flipping, and there's not a boat in sight. There's no one where I went, which is great. Mm-hmm. And I pull up, and it was still, the tide was just not right. The weather was still good. The wind wasn't too bad. I catch 1 or 2, nothing crazy. And then my first big bite is like a 10-pounder and I lose it. And I know it was a 10-pounder because the last day of practice, I caught one in there and it weighed, I weighed it. It was like a 914, and this thing was all of that plus bigger. You know, I knew right then and there, I go, well, there goes my chance of making the cut. You know, you don't lose a 10-pounder and still make the cut in a bass tournament, especially at the Delta. And what I thought the fishing was not very good.
Just kind of set the stage. So here we are, early March at the Delta. For those who aren't familiar, that's one of the prime windows where you can go have one of these sorts of days in that piece of water, right?
It can, yeah. The Delta is a very good fishery. It's known for a lot of big fish. Right. Let's go back to that scenario just for a second.
Yeah.
It's early March. The fish are pre-spawn. And one thing happened, and it's going to come to light here a little bit more in just a second.
Okay.
A lot of the grass was gone. They killed a lot of grass in the Delta. And I don't know how, why, whatever, but all of a sudden the grass was gone in huge sections of the Delta. Normally there is a ton of hydrilla in that place, and it went from on a riprap. There's a lot of riprap there that are levees. The Delta is essentially just a maze of levees.
Right.
And it goes through, you know, farmlands, and they have these levees built up with riprap. Well, when you take and run 10 to 30, 40 feet of hydrilla in front of that riprap, you take all that hydrilla out, and every bass that lives in either, you know, 5, 10 to even 30 feet of hydrilla now has one place to go, and that's right on the riprap. So the two patterns that I found were flipping and then throwing a Lucky Craft crankbait. Pre-spawn, fish are up, the cover's gone, the fish are going to want to bite. And that was kind of, it started to happen more so as the tournament started versus during practice. The tide started to get better.
Okay.
And, you know, practice was kind of tough. A few good fish, few good areas, but you know, losing a 10-pounder flipping, I'm like, you know, my term is done. You know, I might catch 18 pounds today. That wind comes up, I'm not going to catch anything. And I'm going to have 18 pounds instead of 25.
Right. What general area do you remember focusing on that day?
I want to say up in the northern part of the Delta, but I was flipping toolies, reeds.
Yeah.
I was not on the riprap. I was not fishing grass. I was flipping clean reeds that didn't have any grass in there, just solid reed toolie clumps. The tide just started to get right. So I lose that 10-pounder. 2 minutes later, I catch a 4, I catch another 4, then I catch a 7. Well, I went from having one fish and a lost 10-pounder to having 20 pounds in a matter of 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it was. Happened really fast.
Yeah.
And the second I caught a limit, I think I culled maybe 1 or 2 times. You know, had a 7, had a 4, had 2 4s. I culled a 3, had a 3, culled out my smallest one, which was a 1.5 pounds or something. And then it instantly, the wind started ripping and it got blown out. So I had 20 pounds, flipping, and now it's blown out. So my backup pattern is to go crank, but I didn't believe it was that good. So I didn't think that I was going to do much the rest of the day. I thought I was kind of done. And the tide is still right. They really like a low tide at the Delta. For me, that's how I've always caught fish, is on a low tide. It doesn't matter if it's the California Delta or if it's the Potomac River. Anywhere where we have fished a tidal system, it seems like I have caught them better on a low tide. So I run to my backup pattern, which is cranking. I run into a slough that has just a riprap side. There's no grass in there. And I start chucking a BDS 3. Which is in a red color. We call it spring craw. This is a famous bait at the Cal Delta. And I start winding that thing, and I get a bite real close to the boat. The problem with the Delta at this time of year is that a lot of times they'll track it and follow it, and it's beating around in that riprap. And then when it leaves the riprap to come up to your rod to make a cast is when they bite it. So think about having 10 feet of line off the tip of your rod, and then a 6+ pound fish biting it just as you're lifting it to go make another cast.
Right.
There's not much you can do.
Right.
And I distinctly remember getting the first bite right there, and the fish pulls my rod straight to the gunnel, and I can't stop it. And it literally straightened every hook out on the crankbait. And I have no idea how big that fish was. And I'm like, well, now I lost a 10 and who knows how big of a fish. So
Right.
I put some new trebles on, I make about 3 casts, and then I jump off like a 6 or a 7. Like, well, I've lost a 10, a 6 or a 7, and who knows how big the other one was.
So it wasn't the best execution day for you.
No,
Right.
no, it wasn't.
Yeah.
And I just started running the crankbait, and I mean, they bit it and they bit it. And I mean, I caught 4s and 5s. I was culling 4-pounders. I mean, it's pretty rare, you know, on a fishing day to actually be weighing 4-pounders and let a 4 1/4 go because you just caught a 4 1/2. That doesn't happen very often. And, you know, I had my personal best limit, which was
31.4. 31.4 is what you came in with that day, despite all the misfires and the losses. So yeah, to salvage 31.4 is a pretty good effort.
Yeah. And I mean, hindsight looking at that, it was an unreal day. You know, you lose a 10-pounder, you lose a 6-pounder.
Right.
You've got 2 4s in the box. I mean, you know, I should have been in that mid to high 30-pound range.
Yeah.
Based on the bites that I had. And, you know, it was really an interesting tournament. I remember that day just for the fact that I lost those big ones like that, doing 2 different things. You know, I lost the big one in my primary pattern where I thought I was going to catch him. Yep. And then my backup pattern that I didn't think was good ended up being really good. And that's how I ended up catching the entire tournament after that, was just cranking riprap.
Okay, so you wound up 3rd place after day 1. You had Chad Fry at 35.10. And then a guy named D. Thomas, I don't know, maybe y'all have heard of him, 33.1. He was in 2nd, and then you were in 3rd after day 1. That was the biggest tournament limit you've caught to that point in your life, you said?
Oh, yeah.
That changed 2 days later when you caught 31.10 on day 3 to take the lead going into the final day.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I don't mean to bring this up, but you wound up finishing 2nd to another gentleman from out west, Brett Height, who was on some sort of wicked tear that particular month. That was his 2nd win of the month that year. I don't know if you still hold that against him, but there's no shame in losing to Height, I guess, that month. I don't think anybody was going to beat him, but I do have one thing I want to show you just to get your reaction. You know, it's always fun to dig up old photos of you guys. So this is from day 1 of your of that tournament, and here's you on stage, looking pretty dapper in the National Guard jersey and the jeans and the big leather belt. So
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I remember having more comment. I had more people tell me I needed to get a new belt after I think that tournament.
You could have you could have put ads. You could have put sponsors on that belt. So
I know, really, huh?
I just want to, again, to take the time to thank you for doing this today, Brent. This is, it's been fun to kind of, like I said, go down memory lane with you guys on these particular days. And I want to encourage the viewers to, you know, share with us your quote unquote bass day evers. Tell us the details. We want to hear, because I'm sure, you know, it's not just these pros that have these memorable days on the water. We all do from time to time. And
for sure. I have one other real quick day that I remember. It was a writers conference up in, where was it? I want to say it was the upper Mississippi somewhere. I don't know.
Here we go. Is this where I say the connection's getting bad?
Yeah, it might be. I happened to be on the water with one Todd Seisner, and he wanted to borrow a rod and reel and makes a cast with the Daiwa. Now, keep in mind, this is a Daiwa SV reel that is almost unbacklashable. And
so I hear.
Todd Seisner guy cast it out and exploded the reel to where we just went ahead and tucked that away, put it in the rod box because we couldn't do anything else.
It does live in infamy on Instagram, I think, despite my pleas that have fallen on deaf ears that you remove it. It still appears on the social media universe. So, hey, like I've told you guys, if I can dish it out, I'd be able to take it. So,
so I have 2 memorable days. One was about me, one was about you.
There we go. All right, fair enough. Well, hey, I'm going to cut you loose here, let you get back to your relaxation time, I guess, out west. I'm with the family, but I appreciate your taking the time here to do Bass Day Ever with us, Brent.
Of course. Thanks for involving me. It was really a lot of fun.
Take care.
See you.